Ex-cons of Reddit, what was the hardest prison habit to break after being released? Not me personally, but I know a guy that said after he got out he just wanted McDonald's. When he got there he spent 20 minutes staring at the menu trying to decide what to order because he wasn't used to having choices. Staring at sharp things. Like there's no desire to use them inappropriately, but you are just kinda shocked they're there and available for use. You might be surprised what qualifies as a sharp object. I remember whenever someone tried to hand me a knife or something to cut veggies, I'd be afraid to touch it. Glass was the biggest thing though. Just mirrors in all the bathrooms. Real ones. I could smash that and have a big jagged weapon. I can't believe this Italian restaurant has such a dangerous thing in their bathroom. One of my foster sons came to us from juvie. Every meal his arm was around his plate and he wolfed down his food. My mastiff couldn't keep up. He always ate back to the wall hunched. Took my wife and I a month to show him no one would take his food and we had plenty more. Funny part is he went in the Marines and did 8 years, got out honorable and is now working in corrections. I still like having a stash of ramen packs somewhere even if I'm not going to eat them. Taking a with my underwear up to my thighs to hide my junk. It took a long time to go back to pants around the ankles. Not wearing shoes in the shower. Eating with forks and knives. Having salt and pepper for food. Not always having to watch your back. Being able to get food when you want it. And just get up and leave to go for a drive or something. I don't smoke. But every time someone offered me a cig I would pocket it. On the inside that's a bartering chip. I eat fast. I don't sit with my back to the door in public. I always scan crowds constantly. I question why people are nice to me. I carry extra clothes, water, and various other things in my car in case I need it. Not a hoarder but harder to get rid of stuff. I don't like being away from home overnight. I also quit eating boiled eggs. I overseason my food. And I refuse to drink Kool-Aid anymore. Hoard feminine hygiene products. We were super limited on the number of pads or tampons they gave us. They didn't give any to the women in holding cells. There was dried and fresh menstrual blood on the floor and concrete benches. And a drain in the middle of the rooms like they intended to hose down the room. But if they did, it was not often enough. I didn't use a fork for a few weeks. Ate everything with a spoon without thinking. It's not the most interesting thing, but I hadn't noticed it posted here. Sure seems like ex-military and ex-cons share a lot of habits. Not sure what to make of that. My best friend did 6 years in prison. I did 8 in the military. We concluded that the wire on his fence was to keep the enemy in. Mine was to keep the enemy out. Edit. To note that was the only difference in our lives while serving our time. Second edit to cover down some comments. The comparisons were while I was deployed. I did 3 tours and it is very different than being home in garrison. True. In garrison is just like living a normal life. But while you're deployed you're often wondering, is this my last day alive? What's my family doing? Thinking. Experiencing while I'm out here. You've got to wait in line for the phone. If you even get to use the phone. Internet was a rare option to even send an email. So don't write how silly it is until you've sat down with your best friend. Thankful he made it out alive and he's thankful you did too. I had to completely change my sense of time. I agree with all the people who said they ate super fast. But then we would slow walk back from the chow hall, any excuse for a few minutes more outside. I made sure I never consolidated enjoyable things. If I had a snack I ate it and concentrated on it. If there was something good on TV, I watched it. Now, I'll snack while I watch a movie because there aren't enough hours in the day, but on the inside I was trying to make hours and days go away. I've got a good job now. And nice respectable friends. But I still react to confrontational situations more quickly, decisively and efficiently than they do. I'm able to pull back at the last minute. But it's pretty clear that violence is not a tool in their arsenal. Taking as long as you want in the shower. For the longest time after I got out, it took less than 5-minute showers. My friend did 2.5 in Florida State Prison. Said the first thing he did when he got home was shower until all the hot water ran out. Edit. Because this seems to be coming up a lot. This was like 15 years ago. Tankless water heaters weren't really a thing back then. I'm not totally sure if they even existed. And if so, they weren't common in lower income households. So, yes, it was very possible to run out of hot water. I spent 72 months in prison for a tragic car accident that I had caused. After I was released, I kept telling my wife exactly what I was doing without her asking. She thought it was funny at first, but after a few weeks of it she was starting to get bothered. I am now putting IT in. Edit. LMAO. Thanks for the gold. Not an ex-con, but my stepdad has been in and out of prison for the majority of his life. He always said that whenever he gets out of prison you're so used to it being loud all the time that when he got home he couldn't sleep because it was so quiet. Dude I work with said for the first little bit after getting out he would take a leg out of his pants when he'd. Not sure how common that was. Dude's a fighter though. So maybe that had something to do with it. Removed. Not me, but guy who worked for me. When things were very busy, I would often get carry-out lunch for everyone and bring it back to the workplace. This one guy would eat a cheeseburger and french fries in 2 minutes. Whoa. Once I asked him why he ate so quickly. He said, well, knobs former. I spent 7 years in a federal prison, and if you didn't eat your meal in 10 minutes, you didn't get anything. That 10 minutes often included the time it took standing in line to get your food. Okay then. I never said anything to him about it after that. Hey you. You're a decent human being. You hired an ex-con. Keep up the decency. Being paranoid, always looks over my shoulder and never letting anyone stand behind me. Even people passing on the side of me, I'm always turning my head to see what they're doing. Food, I could be the last one to eat, first one done, and I still stand when I eat around people. Sounds like there's a major epidemic of ex-prisoners with PTSD that society doesn't talk about. Doing laps. In prison. Every time you get time on the yard, you do laps. Seriously. Almost every single person does it too. When you get out, it's hard to break that habit. Making prison commissary only food. Everyone around me thinks it is gross as hell to throw summer sausages, pickles, cheese, Doritos, Cheetos, and such into my ramen noodles. But good lord, I can't stop. And I have been out for 5 years. My ex would sleep a certain way all the time. To me it seemed like he was sleeping as if he was in a coffin. His arms crossed and wouldn't move the entire night for a couple months. He eventually broke that habit. Edit. I did that too when I was in. Not because I was afraid of getting up head, but because if someone came at me when I was sleeping, it was the best position to be able to defend yourself. I'm a stomach sleeper normally. A somewhat friend of mine did a few years, and the one habit he couldn't shake was distrusting people. He said that people in prison are never nice. If they're nice, it's because of a hidden motive. Up to this day he still doesn't trust people who act nice, generous, helpful towards him. The hardest thing has been to talk without using the words "I'm" or "asshole" in every sentence. Become a trucker or construction worker and you should fit right in. Edit. Or, apparently, a chef, cook, software engineer, programmer, mechanic, sailor, marine, soldier, or nurse. Ems. Never been to prison, but I did a few months in county jail. Something I haven't seen mentioned is trading food. When I got out, I asked my girlfriend to trade me her chicken wings for my macaroni. Pure habit. Yell out at restaurants loud as I got fries for that coleslaw. Not an ex-con, but judging by a few guys I've worked with, taking extreme offense at the word goof or goofy being used in their presence. It is apparently a prison term primarily in Canada that refers to child molesters, killers, etc. in prison. You definitely don't want that name attached to you. Still, pretty weird to have a dude blow up just because you said something they were working on looked a bit goofy and needed to be fixed. Having your head on a swivel. Protecting your personal property in an obsessive manner. And sizing everyone up. When I was locked up, I always knew what was going on 360 degrees around me. Only the last unit I was in had lockers with actually locks. So before that, I had to protect my commie. Paperwork and books all the time. Most people would fight you to take your because that is the respectful way to do it. But cat burglars are the worst. They sneak around and take. They get ate up by everyone when they get caught. It is code. You want my. Come get it. Not sneaking around and steal it. I've been out for almost a year and a half but I still constantly size people up. No matter where it is. Grocery store. Walmart. Walking down the street. I still analyze each person and figure my best course of action if we have to fight. All of this sounds eerily similar to me being deployed. I've been out 8 years and I still eat like a dog. Most prisons give you 30 minutes for your meal but that includes the walk from your cell block to the chow hall. Waiting in line and finding a seat. Normally by the time I actually get a piece of food in my mouth I've already got a CO yelling over my shoulder to hurry up. It's really annoying going out to eat with people and gobbling up your meal only to be stuck watching normal people eat for 20 minutes. Hardest habit? Talking to dumber-souled men who think they're right cause they're old. Easiest habit? I hated that in prison. Old guys think they know so much just because their age. Like. Mother, you're in prison. You obviously don't know much better than I do. And I'm still rocking my bad haircut right now. I find myself hoarding toilet paper under my bed. A couple guys I know after being out for 5-10 years wrap their arms around their plates and shovel food in their mouths at the speed of light. They are also super defensive of their food. When I first got to know them I jokingly swiped a chip off one of their plates and he flipped his fork up and demanded I give it back. I could just imagine them going on a date with one of them people who says they don't want anything but then proceed to grab something off your plate. My friend once told me he got hooked on watching news channels and crappy daytime television. He said he also enjoyed listening to AM radio now. Even though he knows specific podcasts exist that are more tailored to him. He killed himself 3 years ago after getting a 20-year sentence just 1 year after getting out. Edit. A lot of people asking questions so I'll just go ahead and clarify here. At 18 he served a little over a year in prison for moving marijuana. Got out. Violated parole and got caught moving mass amounts of marijuana and other things like breaking into homes, petty theft which was going to send him back for at least 15 years. After the jig was up he had a while where he was allowed to stay at home. Where he shot himself with a 9mm pistol in the head. He survived the initial shot but later died 2 days after going to the hospital. Was a great friend and knew him since elementary school. Top of our graduating class in high school. Just too much exposure to the wrong people. Not an ex-con but good friend's uncle did 20 years or so. His habit was how he ate. Everything on the 8 got immediately cut, mixed and devoured fast as hell. Don't know why. He always said it's how you did it there. You ate and GTFO as quick as you could. That's one thing that I'm still doing. Chowing down as fast as I can so nobody else has the chance to get you or take your food. I knew of a guy who got out after 15 years. He had to call a friend to come and let him out of his apartment. They'd go out, do some shopping or whatever and then his friend would lock him up for the night. Dude could not work doors himself without a rational fare. He did get better after a few months. But I hear he still has trouble doing things independently. When my dad got out of prison, 10 plus years, we nicknamed him Martha Stewart because he was such a clean freak. His home looks like an IKEA catalog. He has glass containers for his shoes. He wakes up early to iron, wash, scrub everything. When I lived with him for a year, I was grounded so many times over leaving water drops in the sink. 2 words. Giape. Jelly. I remember people literally fist fighting over jelly when I first got in. Realizing I can unlock my own door to go outside. Took me a while to realize that my roommates didn't have to unlock it to let me out. Pacing back and forth. Isolation. I used to be a social butterfly, but after spending so much time keeping to myself, I don't know how to socialize anymore. Not me, but my best friend who spent 2/3 of her life locked up in juvie and prison. She wanted a glass of water. She would ask permission. Also, if we were at my apartment and were gonna leave to go somewhere, she would stand behind the door and wait for me to open it. As if the door to my apartment was locked and only I had the keys. I was released at the end of November after 3 years. And my biggest adjustment is grocery shopping. In prison jail you typically can only go to the canteen once a week. And it isn't like just walking into your local grocery store. You have to write all your items down in advance. So if you forget something, you have to wait another week to get it. Or if you're lucky, buy the item off another inmate. So it is still weird adjusting to being able to go and get groceries, hygiene items, etc. whenever I need them. Eating at a normal pace. I still kind of hover over my food and inhale it rather quickly at times. I don't like sitting without my back to the wall. Definitely sleeping habits. Still haven't broke them. Haven't slept a full night in over a decade. Any noise and my eyes are open and I'm wide awake. I can hear really well. Raccoon comes nightly to eat scraps and cat food and I can hear him crunching outside on the porch from bed on the opposite side of the house, roughly 60 feet away. Wide awake. I had to stop myself from knocking when getting up from a table. Explaining why this happens also really freaked my family out. An ex-con who works for me always asked to use the restroom. I have politely informed him that there is no need to do that. He's an adult and can use the restroom whenever he pleases. But he keeps asking and apologizing, saying that it's hard to break the habit. He even told me it's hard to pee whenever he hasn't gotten permission. Out of fear he shouldn't be going in the first place. To get around this now he tells me I'm going to the bathroom. You might want someone to cover my station, so I think we found a happy medium. Not being able to go to the free infirmary when sick or hurt. Man. Where I was you had to beg to go. I got busted for weed and was confined in the county lockup for a couple months when I was 20. After I got out. For a year or more I dreamed every night that I was back in stir. That was the real punishment. Being a recluse. Prison is a garage of a bunch of people that don't want a thing to do with each other. Unless you've lived a certain lifestyle. There's no one there you'd associate with under normal circumstances. You avoid having any reason to associate with fellow prisoners or the guards. You try to find ways to keep yourself from going totally mad. If you're very lucky, maybe you'll find someone to chat with when walking the yard. Or to play chess with. Other than that, you try to live in a private bubble. It's very hard to shake that when back out in the real world. In 26 months the only habits I kept were the positive ones. Hygiene and exercise. The only thing I wish I had kept doing is reading. I read about 350 novels in 26 months, including the 5 released Game of Thrones books 4 times. My hardest habit to break after release was eating all the damn time just because I could. I gained a easy 40 pounds in the first 9 months of being out. Even when you make a big store you still never eat good. Holy, this thread taught me that American prisons are like those in the third world. WTF. Aren't you the richest country on earth? What do you spend it on? Question mark. Prisons, like the military and the government, have become a major industry here. The bottom line has changed. Instead of it being about reformation, protecting the public, or justice, it is all about the money now. That is one of the major reasons why little things like smoking weed can land you so much time. The more prisoners a prison has, the more money they make. We can cut our military budget into a quarter of what it is right now and still have the largest military budget. After reading this, it makes me think maybe prison isn't the best way to rehabilitate troubled people. Edit. It looks like this comment garnered a lot of conversation, good and bad. I ask that people be polite. Way too much nastiness. Please don't contribute more. I used to work with a guy right after he got out of prison. Was in for 3 years I think. And he became a pretty good friend of mine, but he was incredibly standoffish at first. Would say like 1 or 2 words at most and wouldn't associate himself with anyone. But me being the class clown type, I guess I was able to get him to open up a bit. He eventually told me the hardest part was trusting people. He thought that literally everyone was out to either scam him or trying to get him wrapped up in some that would get him put back in prison. He said it was to the point to where he thought some of the new hires were put there by his probation person for the sole purpose of trying to get him to do something to violate his parole or probation rules or whatever you call them, so he would get sent back. I used to sharpen plastic silverware to make weapons and sell them to the inmates. I still find myself sharpening plastic utensils out of lingering anxiety. Not chiseling away at my wall with my rock hammer anymore. This guy Shawshanks. Hiding my phone when someone walks into the room. Been out 2 months and I'm still like that. The cherries. If I see lights flashing in the rearview mirror, it gives me a panic attack. I associate police with being kidnapped and held against my will for years. In a matter of minutes you can go from being free to locked up with no chance of getting out for months or years. I still have dreams about being locked up or arrested and I wake up with intense anxiety. The scary part is it's almost easier to be incarcerated. You know the rules. What to do. Where to go. It doesn't help when you get out and it's up to you. I still struggle to make decisions. I lost a girl I loved. My friends. My freedom. It left me a broken, lonely man who can barely pay by in life. It's also hard to overcome the stigma in employment. I'm lucky there. My brother had a hard time opening doors. For a while after he got out, he would stop for a second in front of any door that needed to be opened. He forgot that he was allowed to open the doors by himself. What do you eat in prison if you have celiac disease and can't eat things like ramen? You eat things like ramen. Dietary requirements are generally only enforced after visiting a DR and getting a diagnosis with that as a recommendation. Which will probably take a month from when you originally ask. Which was enough for me to not be helped by the meds because my body kept rejecting them before they had a chance to be absorbed. 67 pounds lost in 67 days. And they thought I just wasn't taking my meds. That's from 150 pounds down to 90 pounds. The administrator called me out to speak with him and couldn't stop making jokes. Like I wasn't dying. If you jumped up and down, your stomach would fall out your asshole. You look like an Auschwitz survivor. Hard to have them work when you can't keep anything down for more than 5 minutes. The system almost had me out of my life.